Hello and welcome to Irreverent. Don't worry, I have just as little clue as to when we're going to be going live with this as you do. My name is Eli, I'm joined as usual by Levi. Yes, we're recording this one on Monday because our work weeks worked out to where we can actually record with somewhat fresh memory of what happened. Now, if only we actually gave a crap about any of the races that we had planned to talk about. Without further
I
ado,
give
I was going to say, because of that, without further ado, I'm now going to turn it over to Levi to talk about NASCAR, which we hadn't planned to talk about this week.
I not only do I give a crap, I give a king size dump about what happened this week at Pocono. Yeah, no. So you, the listener, may have been looking forward to a discussion. I say discussion like we were actually smart. Kind of a banter about the 6 hours of Sao Paulo combined with the Iowa doubleheader, and we will fulfill half that promise. We promise. Where we're going to talk about Iowa and both races, but we were watching 6 hours of Sao Paulo, and me and Eli agreed. Like it's fine. But when it comes to actually like talking about racing in general, like the things I care about, I was
We,
not planning on talking about Pocono. Pocono usually doesn't have a great race, but it just so happened that this race was a lot better than Sao Paulo, and there's more things for me to care about and talk about,
yeah,
and so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
think we
have
can both agree. I
we had things to talk about Sao Paulo, but it wasn't about the actual race. So there will be a discussion part on
yes,
that, but it's not going to be the normal race discussions that we usually have.
yeah, no, I it just we were talking and like Le Mans worked so well last month. In general, at WEC, IMSA, best tracks for that kind of sports car mixed class racing are wide, large tracks that there's plenty of room to fit those several, 60 odd cars. There's several, feet on the apron, like a lot of room for passing. And Sao Paulo is neither a large track or a large apron track. It is a small track all the way around, and unfortunately, one would think, with how good NASCAR is at Bristol, that made the smaller track the more exciting. But this was, I don't know, it's just it felt like you just couldn't get a pass done. And if you try to get a pass, either they were, kind of wrecking a bit, or it just didn't get done overall.
Every time
I'll
someone
stop,
went for a
I'll stop,
pass, yeah, every time someone went for a pass, they got caught up in traffic. But we'll talk about that after we talk about the actual good races this weekend.
yeah, that's right. There was a good race, and you know what, guys? Call me Dua Lipa, because gosh darn, that race got me falling in love again. No, really, I was telling Eli before this story, like the first couple of stages of Pocono, like they were fine. It was kind of expecting Pocono, where I feel like if you're a NASCAR fan listening, you kind of know what I mean when I say typical Pocono. It's like usually there's always a decent restart, fight for the lead, but usually, almost every time, the leaders will get spread out, and they're going to get spread out to a point where the clean air over those three very unique turns is really going to give the leader a huge advantage. And usually, I feel like by about lap 10 to 15 of a run, the leader has already pulled out at least like a 1.5 to 2.5 second gap over second. Pocono has never really given great racing, but I feel like the race itself was decent. It wasn't this Pocono. I told Eli it's one of the better Pocono races I've seen in terms of actual racing. It's still one of the bottom feeders of NASCAR's schedule, but this is one of the better ones I've seen. And especially, I may be biased because Ryan Blaney is currently my favorite driver since Kevin Hart retired. And to see Ford win yet again and that beautiful Wabash car got me feeling a certain way. Like I was so happy to see Ryan Blaney win because his first win was here back in August 2017, driving for the Wood Brothers, and here he is 7 years later, finally getting back there in a Cup car. And I don't know really what to say overall. Like, should I go to the race, or I just know that got me super excited. But that final third stage is really kind of what I want to zone in on. Stage one was won by Martin Truex Jr. Great looking car, interstate batteries. Great looking car for stage two too. Like Denny Hamlin, the Mavis brakes. Not a lot to say about stage one and stage two. So because I can't remember well, even though it was just yesterday, I'm going to go to the app because I do believe there were a couple incidents. One of them was Noah Gragson losing control, I think, in stage one of his car. Stuart Haas definitely wasn't the best this weekend, even though Ford has really been on tap. So I'll give off your top five while I'm trying to look for what happened during the stages. So Ryan Blaney won, Denny Hamlin second, Alex Bowman third, William Byron fourth, and Joey Logano in fifth. So yeah, there were definitely some incidents. But yeah, Noah Gregson was the only one stage one. Won by Martin Truex. Ryan Blaney wasn't, of course, in stage one. He didn't get any stage points, unfortunately. But yeah, so I'll just go by that. Stage one was very uninteresting. It was typical Pocono, like I said, and besides those few incidents, it was a very standard 40. Wait, was it 40 laps? I forget how. It used to always be 40, 40, 80, but I think they lengthened the stages this year. If I'm right, I think it may be a 50 lap stage now. Stage one, yeah, I don't have much to say other than it happened. Going on the stage two, once again, won by Denny Hamlin.
They
And this
shortened
is kind of
stage
the part
one
of the
is
race.
30 laps.
Okay, did they lengthen stage two then?
Let me see. I was finally able to actually find the lap-by-lap summary on NASCAR's website. I hate that it's in a different place on every single website. Where is it?
Well, he's looking for that really quick. When he does find that, I am going to start talking about Ford because stage
65.
two,
Stage two was 65
six.
laps.
All right, so stage one and stage two combined are 195, 100, it's 95 laps. But yeah, let's talk about stage two because stage one was generally uninteresting, short stage. Kind of you expect Martin Truex to be good at these kinds of tracks. He's always been good at Pocono. The stage two, I think, is when Brad Keselowski actually got the lead for a while, and Ford in general was getting up front. And let's talk about Ford. I know the last time we talked about NASCAR, we talked about Ford because I love them. The last time we talked about Ford, I was kind of going bonkers because they had won their third race in the last several months. Well,
Third or fourth.
now two Ryan Blaney wins later, and now the manufacturer championship is Chevrolet is winning with 9 wins. Toyota has 7 wins, and now Ford has 5 wins. Mind you, before May, Ford had 0 wins. It was Chevrolet had 7, Toyota had 5. And the last 3 months, Ford has beaten Toyota and Chevrolet 5-2. Um, and I've just been so interested in seeing this develop because as a Ford fan, I wasn't losing all hope. Of course, they're probably going to win, but totally, I was losing hope at the point of them ever coming back to a serious threat, like a couple drivers could actually compete in the playoffs and may launch a championship charge. But to see them come back in just this insane way, it's heartwarming for me because I'm a fan, but it's also just epic. Like, of all my years of watching racing, it usually, and especially NASCAR, it always feels like the first third of the season is what you see is what you get. And with this season, I couldn't be far from the truth, and it's insane to see happen. Where it's so much fun too. It's my team. They're the ones coming back, but I genuinely have never seen this happen, where a manufacturer has gone from having a historically horrible streak of 12 winless races to all of a sudden in the next 9 races they win 5 of them. That was just immensely unexpected. And on top of that, it's one organization that's really kind of getting the speed back. Of course, we probably would expect Team Penske to do it, but yeah, all 3 of them have won a race, and now Ryan's won 2. Brad Keselowski's won 1. But yeah, like just seeing Brad Keselowski lead at Pocono, I was thinking to myself, this is the first time, like, hey, I think I have someone to root for. Ryan Blaney wasn't too far off. I don't think he didn't get any stage 2 points. But I know Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski were in the top 10, and I was like, man, maybe because coming in, it's Pocono. I was kind of expecting the same old, which is maybe why I was kind of in like the Max Verstappen depression of just probably, in practice it was all Gibbs versus Hendrick, and I thought that's how the race was going to play out. But seeing Brad lead and Joey not far off, I'm like, hey, maybe the Fords have pace here. Maybe they're in for yet another win. And we'll talk about that very soon, but they were. So yeah, that was stage 2, won by Denny Hamlin. But yeah, stage 2 is when the interest was starting to get peaked. I'm like, maybe this is better than Sao Paulo, because we'll talk about it, but I almost fell asleep watching Sao Paulo. This race, I can't believe a Pocono race was better than Sao Paulo, but I am a NASCAR fan, so that's probably why.
I mean,
Alrighty.
no, but Sao Paulo was just crap this year.
Yeah, well, at least I'm not completely mentally ill.
Yeah, no, I was so relieved when you said that you wanted to talk about NASCAR, because I was like, oh, thank God we don't need to just stretch for content.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I just finished my thoughts on stage 2. Stage 3 is where all the meat happened. This is the point in the race where I was literally so glued to my phone. And listeners, maybe TMI, but I just bought a motorcycle, and I was going to go out and play with said motorcycle, but I could not get off my phone. I was so glued to it in stage 3. I was like, I want to ride, yeah, but I need to see this play out, because midway through stage 3, all of a sudden my favorite driver has the lead, all right? And I see something happen at Pocono that I don't think I've ever seen happen at Pocono in recent memory. Now, Eli, I don't know if you've heard this term called the big one. You know what the big one is?
I might not be a modern NASCAR fan, but I've been around long enough.
Said big one actually happened at Pocono. I don't think, if you're a new NASCAR fan, you're going to learn that the big one is really exclusive to plate tracks and plate racing. If you get a big wreck, it's very unheard of. And I'm going to say up front, I don't like wrecks. I don't watch racing for the wrecks. A lot of people lose their favorite driver in the race. It's not fun, and cars cost a lot of money. But when you see, just this Easter egg of an event happen, it gets your attention. I feel like that's when it captured my attention in stage 3. Now, I forget if the big one happened first. I just know that there were a series of cautions started. Rats. What started the cautions? Because yeah, the final stage, the middle portion was caution ridden. There were several cautions for just spins and stuff. I'm trying to remember what started the overall. Here, I'll go to the timeline. The overall thing here. Oh, this is a good timeline. Oh my goodness, I completely. Oh, Eli, we got to go back. I'm glad I have the timeline. I have to talk about this. All right, so stage 2 ends, and yeah, so lap 115 is when my attention is glued. So Todd Gilliland gets into the wall in turn 1 after a mechanical failure. So yeah, Todd Gilliland's in the wall, nothing exciting. All the cars come in and pit, and this is when strategy happens. Every driver knows that, all right, there is 45 laps left in this race. If I pit, this will be the last time of the race I have to pit, so I'm all coming in. There was a group of drivers from 1st to 7th who pit with only 2 tires, and guess who got the lead? Kyle Larson. I'm not happy. I don't like Chevrolet winning. And Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott come out, and it's just like, whatever. Well, I guess we'll go back to racing, but so yeah, Todd Gilliland gets into the wall. Those guys come out on the pit road. Martin Truex is the first to come out with 4 tires in 8th. And my going in my head, I'm like, I think Martin Truex made the right call. He's only in 8th. Track position is hard, but he's got those 4 tires. We'll see if he can get up there.
I mean, that's a long time to run with just 2 tire change.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I'm thinking Martin Truex may have the edge here. And honestly, guys, I was at peace with the Truex win. He's a Toyota. This year, I am a Truex fan because, I grew up watching him dominate. It's going to be sad to see him leave, so I want to see him get one at a place where he's good at. So I'm like, yeah. And the Interstate Batteries car, I love it. Let's do it. Let's see if he can do it. Before the cars even get restarted, which, by the way, IndyCar only took 3 laps, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, too fast on pit road. As a Ford guy, my interest is immediately peaked. I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the Kyle Larson chase I won to. They were probably going to win. Now they're not. They are totally back in the pack after that penalty. And if I do believe, yes, that's when Ryan Blaney got the lead. So not only did they get penalized, but who do you know? Ryan Blaney has the lead now. All right, so we get restart. I'm very excited. Um, Kyle Busch gets clipped by Corey LaJoie, bring out the caution right after the restart. All right, so now the entire field, now I'm really locked in myself because this means even the guys on two tires may have a chance. Like, they are completely good on fuel to go the rest of the race, but now the rest of the race is less than 40 laps. And so, yeah, now the stint's a lot less shorter, and now the likelihood of Ryan Blaney winning has just, gone up a bit. So, in 6 laps, we get restart again. And I want to say, yes, this is at lap 127. So back to the big one, guys. We're back to the big one after that thing of me being interested. You don't see big ones at Pocono. On lap 127, though, on the restart, it says Michael McDowell, Zane Smith, and John Hunter Nemechek go 3 wide into turn 1. Zane Smith and John Hunter Nemechek get together. And yes, they cause a big pileup. And I want to see just how many cars got on this pileup. But this is the biggest pileup I've ever seen at Pocono. And that's not going to be a lot. But watching it was pretty insane. So let's see how many got involved. I think it was 7 or 8 cars. Yeah, 7 or 8 cars in that pile up, and seeing that all come together, and it was horrifying watching it because I forget if it was Zane Smith or John Hunter Nemechek, but they spun. They came together and spun. John Hunter Nemechek went into the apron of turn 1 and started coming back into the pack. It was horrifying. I'm like, someone's going to die. It's horrifying to see this happen. It's like in a video game, and all the cars just somehow several cars dodge it, but unfortunately about 8 cars get caught up in it. Several guys get their days ended, but yeah, so my favorite driver's leading. I see this rare thing happen at Pocono. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the most eventful Pocono race I've ever seen. But yeah, so after all that carnage, it calms down finally. And yeah, we get restarted on lap 132. Unfortunately, this is the last caution of the race, thankfully, but this is the 4th caution in a row. Ty Gibbs is leaking fluid. They got to put the flag out again. Ty Gibbs had a pretty good car. I didn't think it was a winning car, but it was pretty good, so unfortunate for that. And yeah, they get restarted on lap 138. Alex Bowman mounts a decent charge on Ryan Blaney for a while, but kind of falls back and then gets passed by Denny Hamlin. And, Denny Hamlin just didn't have enough time at the end to catch Ryan Blaney, and that's the end of the story. Ryan Blaney had a signature end of a Pocono race where he had, a 2-second lead, but it was an eventful way to get there, and I was very, very interested. So no, I had a lot to say on that. Like, that stage 3 was one of the best stages of racing in terms of just my interest in definitely a few weeks. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy last stage to a normally dull race at Pocono.
Glad that we ended up with something actually exciting to happen to fill us some space. Because race 1 at Iowa does not qualify.
Oh yeah, totally. I actually have a few things to say, but definitely not going to fill up space. But yeah, like that was I don't think we've ever really gone into an in-depth race review, but I wanted to go into that race review to see, because this Pocono race, it was interesting to me, not just because it was finally a race that had a lot of interesting moments, but it was a race that developed nicely. Like, stage 1, I'm ready to turn off the TV. Stage 3, I literally prefer to watch that over taking a ride on a motorcycle. Like, I was so involved in seeing Ryan Blaney get that win. Oh, by the way, 12th career win for the number 12. I'm going to be that old guy that mentions those numerical values. You're welcome, listeners, if there are any left.
You say left like there were any to start with.
Yeah,
he'll be here when 6 months when he catches up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's gonna watch each episode like 22 minutes at a time. But I might just talk, finish up this discussion talking a bit about Penske overall and Ford and Ryan Blaney. If you have anything to say, you like.
Not in particular. I was actually trying to watch the 6 hours of Sao Paulo and losing so much interest that I started doing laundry instead, so I was not watching any racing at the time this was happening.
I'm so sorry. So, I'll fill space about that, but also just, why I love NASCAR. So yeah, I'll just talk about Ryan Blaney a bit. Yeah, it's it 12th win for the number 12, second win this season. His winningest campaign in NASCAR in his career has been 3 win seasons in 2021 and last year. Those were his highest winning. I very much think Penske now is the speed for Ryan, hopefully to crack that 4 and the win column. I really want to see it happen. And I feel like now Penske really has had the speed to win really anywhere. And after Worldwide Technology, Ryan totally should have already been a 3-time winner by now. And the team just has so much speed. It's like right now, if Ryan Blaney doesn't win, it's either he was really close to doing it or just the race didn't go his way and he could have won it. Like Nashville and Worldwide stick out, and New Hampshire even. Like he's just been in the mix so much that it's hard for me to see him not winning at least 4 races this year. Like give him another couple, especially we're going to Daytona in the summer. He's an awesome. Actually one of the best now restrictor plate racers we have, and I really do want to see him win Daytona. It's something I know he can do. So yeah, no, as a Ford fan listener, if there is any listeners, and if there is any listeners, if you just so happen to be a Chevrolet fan, I am sorry for all this Ford bias, but it's so cool to see a comeback, and when your fair driver is doing it, it's definitely cool. But next weekend too, I was thinking Eli this morning. Now, listener, bear with me. I was parked at First Watch this morning. Now, if you don't know what First Watch is,
We do not need an analysis on random places in the Midwest.
no, I think you do. If you're, hey,
I
French
have the power to
listeners,
end this right now.
no, let me talk about First Watch. This is important to the story.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Actually, thank you. French listeners, imagine America. Now, zone in on Ohio and zone even further in on Columbus. When you're in Columbus, I want you to drive south on High Street. You're eventually going to hit this strip. And in that strip is Chipotle, which honestly, a lot of people outside the US know about Chipotle by now. And right next to Chipotle is a building called Fist Wirch because 2 of the letters are blanked out. It's called First Watch, and I clean it once a month as a window cleaner. Great account. But this morning I got to work early because I literally couldn't sleep. I was so excited to ride my motorcycle. So I had some extra time to eat breakfast this morning. I was thinking, when I we're going to Indianapolis, and the reason I'm excited is I'm going to that race this week. Indianapolis and Pocono. Pocono's turn 2 is modeled after Indianapolis. Did you know that, Eli?
It doesn't surprise me. A lot of places are.
Yeah. So I was thinking back, like Ryan Blaney, 7 of his 12 career wins have been on super speedways. He's had 3 at Talladega, 1 at Daytona, 2 at Pocono, and 1 at Michigan. I think the guy knows how to get around really large tracks. And of all of the super speedways he's been to, the only tracks he hasn't ticked off are Auto Club Speedway, which doesn't exist anymore after this year, and Indianapolis. And I was thinking, could Ryan Blaney actually do it? And if I go to that race, am I confident that Ryan Blaney is going to win it for me? Because listeners, the only other NASCAR race I've been to in my life was 2022 Michigan, and Kevin Harvick won it. That was amazing. But yeah, I'm like, can Ryan Blaney do it? So I looked back and I tried to find, how do the Pocono winners in NASCAR fare at Indianapolis every year? Are they similar enough tracks that a driver who wins at Pocono could win at Indianapolis? Do you think that's a reasonable assumption, Eli, that if you're going to be good at Pocono, you're probably also going to have good speed at another super speedway that's 2.5 miles?
I mean, that's the pattern that generally holds other times.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, short track racers are good at short tracks. Intermediates are good there, and super speedway racers just know how to get it done, no matter how large that track is. They know what to do with a lot of speed, and Penske has the speed right now. So I looked back when I started watching, which was of course 2018, and I looked back at 2017 because I remembered that Casey Kane won that Indianapolis race. And guys, that Indianapolis race was the biggest bogey in NASCAR history, and some consider the 2017 Brickyard 400 to be one of the worst races in modern history. We're not going to go to 2017, so we're going to 2018. So that year, Martin Truex Jr. won the spring Pocono race. Kyle Busch won the summer Pocono race. Brad Keselowski won the Brickyard. And so, if I was a good podcaster, I'd pull up the top 10, which I'm doing right now in that race, because I distinctly remember that Denny Hamlin was in second place. So, when I looked at Brickyard 400, it gave me literally everything except the results. And when I pulled up results, all it gave me was Brad Keselowski won the race, period. So, goodbye. I need to see. So, you know what? I'm just going to finish my point because now I'm just looking like an idiot. 2019.
Is that really any different than normal?
Keep it up. I'm going to mention a reference you told me not to make. In
I still have all
2019,
the power.
guys, Emperor Eli over here just electrocuting me with his Sith lightning.
I'm seeing if I
Anyway.
can't find historic results for you, by the way.
Yeah, keep looking, because I actually have a legit point I'm going to make. 2019, I think Denny Hamlin won the spring Pocono race. Kyle Busch once again wins the summer Pocono race. Kevin Harvick wins the summer race not the summer race, the Brickyard. So these couple of years, we kind of see that Joe Gibbs, has a lot of speed, and these Toyotas, and Ford seems to have speed at Indianapolis. And unfortunately, in this next gen car, we don't have Indianapolis results to look at, so we have to look at Gen 6 results.
So
But
what
the
years
next
were you
year,
wanting results for again? 2020?
28. I was just gonna look for the 2018 top 10 at Indianapolis.
Alright. Had to go to Wikipedia to find it.
That's so annoying, man. When I was a kid,
could
you could
not
just
find it
type
anywhere on NASCAR's website.
That's so annoying.
The final was Brad Keselowski, Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Kurt Busch, Jamie McMurray, Kyle Busch, Paul Menard, and Ryan Newman.
Alrighty, so I'm kind of seeing the same names pop up. And when I get to 2020, you all are going to be astonished. Now, I get it. We're going to have our own episode sometime. Eli, I've never talked to you about this, but we have to talk about the big three in the Monster Energy Cup at some point. You're going to see Kevin Harvick, MTJ, and Kyle Busch in the top 10 a lot, so it doesn't mean a ton. But that name, Denny Hamlin was kind of garbage in 2018. He was actually really garbage. He still managed to get a top 3 at Indianapolis, and he still manages to be one of the best drivers at Pocono. I know this one year doesn't make a difference, but let me tell you, when we get to 2020, there is a Pocono doubleheader, and I forget who won race, because there was race 1 too. I just know Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin were the winners that weekend. And when we get to Indianapolis, Kevin Harvick wins at the Brickyard. If you just look at these results and you look at the top 10s, drivers who are good at Pocono are always going to have some level of speed at Indianapolis. And you may think, no duh, but that's the thing. Pocono and Indianapolis are super speedways, and to be good there, you just need a lot of speed. Right now, and this point is just to basically say, I am picking Ryan Blaney this weekend at Indianapolis. Team Penske has the speed, and it's obvious that Ryan Blaney is far and away the best Penske team. So you combine his speed and efficiency with the fact that a lot of people who are good at Pocono are going to be good at Indianapolis too. Worst case scenario, you're going to have top 10 speed there. And that's the thing, it's, speed. So yeah, that was basically a lengthy point to say that Kevin Harvick is the only one I remember winning both in the same year in recent memory, Pocono and Indianapolis. But yeah, if you look at the top 10 results, usually the guys who are going to be good at Pocono are going to be good at Indianapolis. So if you're a Ford fan fretting that Ryan may not have it this weekend, highly doubt it. He's going to have the speed. He's my pick to win, and I have faith that he can do it because, once again, if you're going to be good at Pocono, you're probably going to be good at Indianapolis. Plus, he has the speed and the team to do it. So, boom, I'm done talking about Ryan Blaney and why I love NASCAR. I almost hit the 3-minute quota, but yeah, this does the point make sense? Am I just losing my mind in the land of Levi, or does this make sense?
I'm gonna be honest. I followed you up to the point where you're like, dude's usually good at similar tracks, so this is another similar track. And then you kept talking about it, and then you kind of lost me.
Oh,
You had me for the first five
well,
sentences, and then the rest of it I was just like, yeah, alright, let's do filler.
well, that's the best filler you're ever going to get. You want me to talk about more about First Watch and my deep shower thoughts I had this morning while I was sitting in that parking lot in South High?
No, because part of the reason that I want to do this podcast is to forget about my job. If our boss is listening, it's not that I don't like my job. It's just that I also need hobbies.
Oh, well, my job is my hobby, apparently. It's fun to think. Like, when you're just cleaning windows, it's fun to just think. And I was thinking, I think Ryan Blaney can do it this weekend. I really do.
That kind of leads us into one of the races that we'll be talking about next week.
But speaking of Team Penske,
Yep.
Hmm.
They
we can talk about Iowa and Indianapolis. Man, we are just drowning in a bowl of Team Penske melted chocolate right now. Like, we're getting coated with willpower.
Well, that's not the one wait, is that the one no. What?
Just messing with you. I'm sorry.
I was so confused for a second. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about, willpower? Isn't the race?
Well, Team Penske was really good this weekend. That's all I'm saying.
But it was not willpower who won the first race. So, we're going to go ahead and go on to Iowa Race 1.
NASCAR fans, I love you.
Hi, Roger. Anyway.
That's right.
So, the starting grid for Race 1 in Iowa was Herta on pole, followed by McLaughlin, Palou, Power, Dixon, Award, Rossi, Ferrucci, Armstrong, and Erickson rounding out the top 10. Now, before we go into too much detail on Iowa, something worth mentioning. Iowa had some new pavement for only the turns and only the lower track. That'll be relevant, as will the fact that Firestone did not do any testing here, and as such, just guessed what tires to bring for the new pavement and the new hybrid system.
NASCAR would never.
So, what you end up with is the teams running tires for like 90 laps. Iowa's usually a pretty exciting doubleheader. Usually. So the race summary goes, lap 1, there's an accident. Lap 54, we haven't given you an update in a while, and Santino Ferrucci did something stupid. It didn't have any impact on anything. Lap 91, before something important happens again. So, starts off, what happened on lap 1, because lap 1 was the most interesting thing we would see for a while. Christian Lundgaard. Wait, why is it ordering it this way? Never mind. David Malukas, coming through, gets checked up a little bit. I forget which car in front of him, but they slowed down more than he expected. So he swerved a little, touched the apron, causing him to spin. Which then led to him... wow, I cannot remember their name. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, right? Yeah. Taking out both of their cars. Canapino's car dead on the spot. Grosjean was able to limp back to the pits. And then Christian Lundgaard, seeing this and trying to avoid it, also clipped to the apron and spun.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was lap 1. And then nothing really happens for quite a while. Because it's all single file racing. Because there's only one track that has good grip. And then we finally get to the point where anyone needs to pit, which is lap 91. They're pitting because they're running out of fuel. Levi, when was the last time you can think of an IndyCar race where the pit stops were defined by how much fuel they had and not how long their tires were lasting?
Probably the last time there was a bad race.
No. Mid-Ohio wasn't determined because of that.
Oh.
But no, seriously, like, what ends up happening, what we end up seeing is that the tires were way too hard. And so a race that historically is known for its tire wear becomes a fuel strategy race.
Now they're starting to sound like Formula One, am I right?
Formula One's the opposite of fuel strategy. They aren't allowed fuel.
Nuh-uh.
Imagine you strap some Pirellis onto these things and imagine what would happen. Those things would be popping after 5 seconds.
Mhm.
Then Will Power later pits again. I also did want to mention this because after last week, you've mentioned it in NASCAR, it's also been happening more often in Formula One. Why has everybody in the past 2 months been forgetting about pit speed limits?
I don't know. It's a very basic thing, and it's
one of
sad
the
in
most
IndyCar and
important
F1
things.
when they do it. And it's sad because they actually have buttons that can help them with that.
Yeah. It's like, it is horrifically dangerous thing to be ignored. And yet, for the past couple months in practice, in qualifying, and even in the races, we've been seeing more and more often people having to get penalties for speeding. And it's like, you have a button, you have a sign, you know what you're doing. These speed limits exist because people died. That's where these come from. But yeah, so,
Well, thankfully, Kyle
yeah,
Larson. I was just going to say Kyle Larson would never.
Yeah. That's really when it seems to have kind of started, now that I think about it. But anyway.
They're like, man, he's so good. We have to emulate him, obviously.
Will Power, basically, it becomes irrelevant at that point. Not that he was actually ever particularly relevant in this race. But, the thing to know is this race, at one point, almost looked interesting. And that's because when the pit stops happen at lap 91, is when we finally see a change in the lead. Which, yes, we went 91 laps without seeing a change in the lead. And the change happens under the pit cycle, because everybody pit. So, what we end up seeing is, Scott McLaughlin barely edges out Herta on the front lane of the pit row, at the end of the pit road, barely taking the lead. And so, for the next, trying to remember how many laps it was. Basically, for the next about 50 or so laps, if I'm remembering right. Let me see if I could find it. But basically, what we end up seeing happen is Herta trying to press McLaughlin for a while, and keeps trying to press him, and is stuck at about 1 second out. There are a couple smaller incidents and some restarts, and we see Herta trying to make a move on the lead, but nothing comes of it. And then Herta they decide that now's the time to make a gamble. They decide to experiment with the strategy, try to go for the undercut, and it would have been a good strategy. It would have been a brilliant play. If there weren't a caution the second he pulls out of the pit lane, meaning that everyone else ends up getting a free pit stop the lap later. So now Herta's out a lap down and trying to recover. And admittedly, he does. He ends up fighting his way back up to 10th, I believe? 11th. No, that's not right. Yeah, no, 11th. Okay, there we go. The dates on that are wrong. Come on, IndyCar, what the... IndyCar's own website has the wrong date for the race. If both races listed as being on the 14th instead of one on the 13th, one on the 14th. Anyway, that's just completely off topic. But what we end up seeing is that that was the most interesting this race was getting. For the rest of the race, we basically just see everything fairly standard up until eventually Palou makes a mistake, hits the wall, and nothing really comes of it. I believe he DNF'd because of it. Where in the world did that race information go? Yeah. Alex Palou ends up getting up into the wall on lap 174, 175. And that takes him out of the race. But by this point, basically everything has settled down. And everyone's fallen into their positions. We end up with a couple of smaller incidents, but it's just a driver with mechanical failure. There was one kind of wild incident that did happen. Which...
Is it where Stingray Rob died?
No, that's race 2. Graham Rahal, that's who it was. He ends up with a cracked rim.
Cracked rim?
Yeah. He had to pit and get a tire change because his rim cracked. Because they were running the tires for so much longer than they expected that they hadn't fatigue tested the rims.
That's one of the more interesting ways to pit.
Yep. The thing is, the commentators couldn't figure out what was going on because all of the camera shots, like, you could see the suspension and see that everything was fine, but the tire was moving like the suspension was broken. And it's such an unusual failure that everyone is just like, why is he pitting? Why is the tire doing that? What is going on here? But yeah, no, part of his rim broke
That
and
yeah.
he had to pit for that. It didn't end up really having too much of a effect, no more than an additional um additional pit stop would on anyone. But yeah, the most interesting thing about this race is Pelot was like weirdly off this race. Um, in the first pit cycle, he, because of the mistake he made last week where he didn't put his car into gear at the end of his pit stop, double shifted, so he ended up in second and couldn't get off the pad. And then he spun at the end, hit the wall, and was just out. So this was Pelot's worst race in a while. And because of that, it had a pretty substantial effect on the championship standing. Because I have not read out the final the results yet. But, so, come race end, you have Scott McLaughlin taking his first oval victory. It's insane it took that long. Followed up by Pato O'Ward, Joseph Newgarden rounding out the top three, Scott Dixon, Marinas VK, Santino Ferrucci, who actually had a pretty good race.
Was he on his phone when he finished?
Wouldn't surprise me. And then Kyle Kirkwood, Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, and then Marcus Armstrong rounding out the top 10, with Herta just barely missing out on the top 10. I honestly think that Herta would have been fighting for the win of this race if it weren't for the fact that he got kind of screwed over by the pit cycle, by when the caution got flown. Because I don't know
I
if you
didn't
saw
watch
that.
this race, so
Yeah. Well, what happens is he tries to go for the undercut because nothing's happening. And as soon as he's about to exit pit lane, caution gets thrown. And because of the dumb way
that
IndyCar does things, they let everybody pit and then stop anyone from being able to pit. So,
you know,
yeah, Herta ends up a lap down.
I was gonna say, like, the most traumatizing race of my life happened to Kevin Harvick. It was like the most worst time thing ever.
Here's my thing on it. I wouldn't care if it was either, unless there's a safety issue in the pit lane, you leave the pit lane open, or the second there is a caution, you close the pit lane. If it were one or the other, I
Mm-hmm.
would not care. It's the fact that they just arbitrarily decide how long they're going to leave the pit lane open for. That's what annoys me.
Mm. So it was last year's Darlington race. And Kevin Harvick was leading the race, and that was utterly insane because that was going to be his first win of the season, and Stuart Haas wasn't good. Now, during a caution, NASCAR completely closes the pits. Unlike IndyCar, NASCAR does 100% close the pits when there's a caution. What happened was Kevin Harvick was literally like inches away from the commitment line when the caution flew, so there was absolutely no way he could have like gone out of there, and he was penalized for it. And I was horribly upset.
See, the thing there is, at least, like, that sucks, but at least it's a hard and fast rule.
I I was in the shower when this happened, so my showers are usually emotional and hormonal enough, but this sent the soap over the edge.
But yeah, like, at least that's like, it's a thing that sucks, but it's like, okay, yeah, that's how the rules always are. It's not a situation like this where it's like, well, we're gonna leave it open for the next lap, maybe two, just in case you want to. And again, like, I would not care if they do F1 style and like there is no restriction or rules on when you can and cannot pit under yellows, cautions, whatever. Right? It's just the fact that race control arbitrarily chooses when to do things.
Depression.
Which actually reminds me of two other dumb things that happened in this race. One of which is not brought out in the official post-race write-up, which I can't imagine why it wouldn't be. Car had to retire because race control messed up.
Oh no.
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was Lundqvist. Yeah. Had to retire because race control messed up and could not turn off his caution lights.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he had to retire from the race, running in a decent position because race control was incompetent. Not because of anything he did, not because something the team did, because of race control.
Like, I feel like between all these things, does IndyCar get the nod for probably the worst officiating in all of major motorsports?
Of the ones we cover, I think there's a good argument for it.
Like between the insane cautions, poorly timed, like poorly reviewed penalties, and all this crap, it's like,
yeah. Like,
it's not good.
well, another thing that happened is, and this one ended up not mattering, but did you hear about how Herta got his pole?
Huh.
Yeah, so he was one of the early runners for the qualifying and set his time. And then race control realized that they forgot to turn on his hybrid system. Because race control has a switch that lets them say when a car can and cannot use hybrid, you know. Because sometimes there's safety things, there's rain, whatever, that they would need to turn it off for. And they just forgot to turn his on for his qualifying lap.
Wow.
Yeah. Mind you, and this is why this is part of the reason why it annoys me that Herta got screwed by that safety car. He was fast enough without his hybrid to have beat everybody while they were running the hybrid.
Are there like a lot of girls up like by the officiating booth? Like these guys can't concentrate.
I don't know. But yeah, no, because the thing, race control did decide that they were going to try and make it right when they realized what happened. They were like, okay, you can, at the end of all of the runs, you can go out and do another run with the hybrid. Which, to be fair, would have been great for him. Because cooler track, more rubber. Right? But he set such a good time on the track early on that he got pole without that run. So like they were getting ready to set up for him to do that run, and then he was like, "Hey, there's one person left, and I am still P1. The worst I could do is P2. Can we just not and keep my original time?" And race control was like, "Since it was our mistake, yeah, sure, why not?" Yeah.
That's yeah.
This is what we learned here today is Firestone needs to test their tires. You should never repave only one lane of a track. And the IndyCar safety car pit lane rules make no sense. I now hand it over to Levi for race 2.
There was a race 2.
Indeed, there was.
You know, it was. I feel like with if that's all the pavement you can afford, you know, it'd be really epic is to completely cover one of the turns in it, and then leave the other one completely completely raw. Like, think of the challenge the teams would have.
Just like anything other than only paving one lane of what is historically a two-lane track.
Anyway, race 2. I am so sorry. I didn't start watching this until lap 95. And when I started watching, pit cycles were going through and Alex Palou was leading, and I thought to myself, hey, isn't Alex Palou supposed to not be good at ovals? Because I remember last year, I forget what race it was, but actually, you know what? It probably was the Iowa race last year when Joseph was destroying everybody, and Alex Palou was consistently in the bottom part of the top 10 or a little out of it. How they were talking about how oval racing, like Alex Palou acknowledged that oval racing was one of the weak points of his racecraft, and how it was something he really wanted to improve upon. And by that point last year, I think that was the last oval race of the year. We only had 4, right? Texas, double Iowa, and Indy.
I think so.
So yeah, I know this year was going to be a big, big red circle for Alex Palou, wanting to take his oval game up a notch, and seeing him lead was kind of like, wow, like, because I hadn't seen race 1. They were talking about him crashing out, but yeah, like that was kind of random. If you like, I was saying about because at holy crap, did we race Texas this year? We did, didn't we?
No. There was a NASCAR race that weekend.
Or why? I know Alex Palou hasn't won in an oval this year, and that
Only
stays the
other
same.
oval that we've run at this year was Indy.
But yeah, so it was nice though to see Alex Palou kind of get those oval gremlins away a bit, running really well today. Well, yesterday, leading the vast majority of the laps. That's pretty valuable as getting that experience. But yeah, so head strategies were going on, and like Eli said, it was race 2 wasn't much different. It was a very much a one lane track. And I was going to talk really quick about the hybrid system on ovals. And I know you talked about how the hybrid was designed so the Indy cars wouldn't sound any different. And to be honest, when it comes to I just mentioned that sound as an analogy because not only the sound, but I feel like the racing in general hasn't been affected much by the hybrid. How do you feel?
I don't think there are two things with it. One, I don't think the drivers really know how to employ it properly yet. And
That's
two,
good, yeah.
I don't think it's powerful enough yet to make an obvious difference. I did want to talk about
I
this a
like
bit
those
later,
answers.
but it's between the safety upgrades, the aero changes, and the addition of the hybrid system, it has become more obvious than ever that IndyCar needs a new chassis.
Nah, the DW12 is the best.
Again, they squeezed this into the engine bell between the transmission and the ICE because they weren't allowed to change anything else.
Perfectly acceptable.
That's why it only produces 60 horsepower.
And lasts for 4 seconds.
Yep.
Why is the hybrid even here? Besides, like, why did Honda want this so bad that they were willing to step out if it's going to make this little of a difference?
Because it was also supposed to coincide with a chassis upgrade that was abandoned.
I was going to say, like, watching this race, I feel like my biggest takeaway, besides the things you've already covered about the one lane race and stuff like that, we'll talk about the drivers in a second, but the quality of the race, I saw it largely unaffected by the hybrid to a point where if you stuck like 2023 Iowa watching Levi to this race and you said, now there's a power difference in these cars, or like there is a very different element in these cars. What is it?
Thing
If you
is,
just showed me the racing, if you just showed me the racing and the onboard telemetry without like the use of the boost, I don't think I could probably tell what was going on or if there was even anything going on.
you have to remember it's only 60 horsepower. The rest of the time, the engines are producing the same amount of power. The aero has stayed the same. The weight distribution has been changed, and the cars are heavier.
Hmm.
So all of those things kind of reduce the impact of it. In fact, last week at Mid Ohio, the commentators were talking about how one of the worst things you can do for dirty air is increase the weight. Because more weight means that you
Absolutely.
need more downforce to be able to maintain the same level of grip. So that's why IndyCar needs a new chassis. But anyway, yeah, no, it like between the drivers not knowing how to use it quite yet and the fact that it's so little power for such a short time kind of makes it not obvious.
Yeah, I was watching the race and the onboard telemetry of the use, and all the drivers used it the exact same. They would recharge going into the turns, and as soon as they go on the straight, they deploy it for the 4 to 5 seconds they had. And yeah, that was kind of it. They all did the same, so there was no definite advantage. And like Eli said, I feel like when drivers learn maybe this season how to maybe manage where they use it on
105 pounds is what it adds to
the
the car.
what?
It adds 105 pounds.
Dang. Yeah, but if they learn how to use it at your normal road courses, street courses, it could be definitely be interesting. But push to pass was also fine.
I I think that if you let them if you let there be a new chassis designed around the idea of having a hybrid system, it would be great. You don't have to change the size of the chassis or anything, but it's just sticking with this one chassis for so long has completely undermined and ruined the quality of racing.
Yeah, unfortunately, it I just wasn't very impressed, I guess, is all I have to say watching this race too. And I honestly was expecting to see a slightly different element, and we just didn't get that.
I also think that Iowa this weekend was kind of a result of too many things being changed at once.
Yeah,
Right? They brought a different
it was.
formulation of tires than the last year. They had the hybrid system. You had parts of it repaved. All of that just meant that the drivers weren't quite comfortable.
Yeah, and it's yeah. I mean, it's such a little difference that you can complain, but also not complain. Like Mid Ohio was just as boring as it ever was. The hybrid didn't make it better or worse. So it's kind of like, I mean, I'm fine with its existence. I guess, we all kind of know the reasons there, but it's kind of like, why though, Honda? Like, why did you need it so bad? And now that's here, why do you continue to want to develop this thing that really
I
just feels like it doesn't need to be here?
I will say the drivers did point out after Mid Ohio because it does function differently than push to pass. Push to pass, if I'm remembering rightly, is just a boost increase, right?
Hmm.
Which
Yeah, it was
means
how much extra horsepower? 50 extra horsepower?
I forget. I thought it was 80, but I could be wrong. But the important thing is that is push to pass works best at high RPMs because of that. the hybrid would produce more power in the lower RPMs, giving you more torque for a launch out of a corner.
Ah.
At Mid Ohio, the drivers were saying the place where it was best to pick up lap time with it was at the end of the keyhole, at that exiting the hairpin. So if we
Ah.
get as we, it'll have more of an bleh, I can't talk. I don't even have the excuse of having been up for 20 hours today. But as we get more races on more technical races, I think we're going to see its impact more.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I hope so. And but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where I was just definitely, it wasn't a time filler. I was just discussing the hybrid. It's like it exists. What do we think? Is it worth continuing to watch? Do you know it? And I feel like my final answer is it doesn't help or hurt right now. It just kind of exists.
to echo the words of the
And
great
like
David Land, if you liked IndyCar before this, it's still IndyCar with a new weird graphic. If you didn't like IndyCar before this, it's still IndyCar with a new weird graphic. I will say, did you notice? Did you see
yep,
what
I
McLaren
think that's
did?
our. Uh-uh.
So, in the cockpit view, McLaren added, instead of having the lights for the charge of the capacitors on the wheel, they have little LED strips on top of the dash right next to the wheel. So it means that the drivers don't have to like switch a menu to see the charge, but also it means that whenever you're on the onboard with their cars, instead of having to use a graphic or anything, you can always see the state of charge, which is a cool thing.
Oh yeah. Oh. Um. Yeah. We'll see ways like that where teams can vary and use it to their own advantage in different ways. That'll be nice to see. Um. But yeah. So let me stretch. So Will Power won this race, his first oval win since Pocono 2019. Hey, speaking of Team Penske and Pocono, am I right? And Alex Palou finished second, which, talking earlier about him wanting to improve on ovals. I mean, second place is really really good. And I will admit, watching Will Power win this week can remind us just again how important pit crews are to racing. This is not an individual sport, even though it very much looks like it is. It's just these pit crews in spec racing make all the difference.
The man started 22nd.
And yeah, and when you can't really pass on the track and you make up, it was 0.888, I think, overall in the pit cycle between slowing down, getting in, getting back out on your outlap. Will Power put almost a second on Alex Palou, and it really showed. He came out with I think it was a 3 or 4 tenths of a second lead over Alex Palou, and he was that far behind Alex Palou going in. So, you can't say enough about the pit crew there for that win. But yeah, so he wins. Great pit crew. Alex Palou finishes second. Scott McLaughlin finishes third in a podium sweep for the weekend. And I am trying to find the rest of the top 10 in race 2.
I have them pulled up. Scott Dixon for fourth,
Um,
Herta fifth, Award sixth, Newgarden seventh, Rahal eighth, VK ninth, and Grosjean rounding out the top 10.
Donko Sherd. So there you go. Personally, it was cool once again to see Will Power back there in the oval race. Um, Unfortunately, IndyCar doesn't race at Pocono anymore. Honestly, it's unfortunately. After Robert Wickens' crash, I don't think any driver wanted to go back there ever again.
I do believe you're
I
forgetting to
remember,
mention a certain incident.
was it when someone died in 2014 or?
Oh no, that wasn't. I was talking about at Iowa.
Okay. Guys, race is not over yet. So, right, wind it back to literally the last lap. Stingray Rob is dead. R.I.P. No, just
And he
kidding,
was
just kidding.
murdered by Rossi.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, so there was a last lap contact between him and Rossi, and I kind of think it was Stingray Rob's fault. Am I right? Did he just kind of, or was it just a racing incident overall? To me, it looked like Stingray Rob just kind of got in the back of Rossi. I don't know if Rossi put on the brakes or what.
Rossi's team
Uh,
didn't tell him he was almost out of fuel until the last
uh,
3 laps or last 4 laps. What happened is
what?
Rossi ran out of fuel.
Okay. And so yeah, Stingray Rob got in the back of him, flipped over, upside down, had to get out. Had the AMR safety team to get him out. Carried out on a stretcher into the ambulance. You know, giving thumbs up to the crowds. Hope he's okay. I personally, so me and IndyCar are best friends, Eli, and I get group chat messages on IG. Honestly, I haven't gotten anything from IndyCar lately on Stingray Rob's health, but I'm rechecking. Here it is. All right, so this is the latest on Stingray Rob at 7:14 p.m. last night. After further assessment at Mercy One Des Moines Medical Center, Stingray has been released. Stingray's family and AJ Foyt Racing would like to extend our gratitude to the AMR safety team for their quick response, to IndyCar medical staff for their thorough care, and IndyCar for the high safety standards of our race cars that allowed Stingray to walk away from a horrific accident today. Thank you, everyone, for your well wishes. We appreciate your support. Well, yeah, so he's fine. But yeah, there were a few other cars. Kyle Kirkwood was one of them. Ed Carpenter was last one. Um, so yeah, that was a pretty crazy way to end the race.
Yeah. So, what's interesting is, um, basically, it seems like everyone on the track, except for Rossi, knew that he was about to be out of fuel.
Are you trying to say he was murdering Stingray Rob on purpose?
No, Rossi's team literally just did not tell him he was going to run out of fuel.
Well, it's McLaren. They were too busy looking at pictures of Nolan Siegel.
Yeah, when do they care? They've already signed someone else for Rossi. See, they were probably just trying to get him killed so that he didn't have to see out the rest of his contract for this year. But no, like they straight up, like, there was no reason for Rossi to still be on the racing line at that point.
Hey, hey, hey! I got a joke.
Okay.
What do Alexander Rossi and Steve Irwin have in common?
Oh, they got taken out by a stingray.
Yeah. I'm so glad you got that.
It was taking me a second because I'm like, wait, this doesn't. What?
No, that yeah, they're gonna like replace Alexander Rossi with Steve Irwin Jr. That's his replacement driver. They're like, hey, Kiwis are good at road racing.
Uh, Actually, out of curiosity, what engine? What engine does is in the back of Stingray's car?
Probably a broken one now.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, if it's a Chevy, I'm going to be honest, I've actually never paid attention to what team Stingray races for. Stingray Rob drives a Chevy. How is that not you? Never mind. Okay, I was about to get everything completely off topic with the whole Corvette and all that nonsense.
No, you can say it. I love talking trash about Chevy.
All I'm saying is, like, you have the Corvette Stingray. You have a driver in a Chevy-powered car whose name is Stingray.
Ah. And just like the Camaro, they both almost died.
Did I say Camaro? I meant Corvette. God, I'm an idiot.
No, no. I just mean it was a Chevy related joke. Like I got it. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
But yeah,
So,
there's one other thing I want to talk about from these races.
what?
There is one person who has a very, very strong opinion on the hybrid system.
Is the same guy who calls tires big, fat, and chunky?
No, he's British. They don't know what we do over here. They don't understand ovals. No, his name is Ed Carpenter.
Oh, Ed Carpenter. Well, he
Yep,
crashed. You can't like trust his opinion. He crashed. He's angry.
exactly. He tried to use the hybrid as an excuse as to why he crashed. He tried to blame the problems with this really there. He tried to blame the problems with this race on that. Let me see if I can't find the exact message. But basically, he just started ranting about how um, the stupid hybrid system was costing him money and it was destroying the quality of racing. Mind you, this is after race number 2 with the thing.
Ed Carpenter, the type of guy to start an argument with his wife and then gaslight her, making her believe she started it.
I mean, really, it was just. I can't find. I can't find it. I'd saved the article, the interview with him, but man really was just. And it was all him complaining about how his, crap team can barely afford to go racing, and it's like, well, yeah, bro. Your team sucks. Do you think anybody cares about your opinion?
Poor Ed. He needs some good Ed. You know what I mean? He needs some good education.
I just like. I'm trying to figure out why he even still is racing.
Um, Same reason Michael Schumacher came back. Love for the car.
Here's the difference. Michael Schumacher was good.
Did you hear that crazy story where like when Michael Schumacher wanted to come back to F1, he was like, I want to make sure I'm good. And so they went to Jerez and he set like the second fastest lap there of all time.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like Michael Schumacher was like, no, I'm not gonna come back and just be like terrible and god awful. I want to make sure I'm competitive. So he goes out, does tests, and then just starts setting records. And it's like, yeah, cool. Good work. That's the right way to do it.
Ed, we're taking you to Jerez, and you better believe you better get the second fastest all-time record here.
And then you have Ed Carpenter, who is a middle-aged man who has not ever really been a particularly good driver, complaining about the fact that his team's broke. And it's like, dude, you're the one who crashed. Of course it's going to cost you money. But yeah, so he tried to blame his crash and how terrible the weekend was on the hybrid system. It's like, no, no. No. The hybrid system had zero impact on the racing in either direction this weekend.
Oh well. Yeah, so I like Iowa overall. I know the racing here can be better, so I'm going to keep watching it because I know it can be better. But
They did sign a
this weekend
multi-year
definitely
extension.
good. Yeah, hopefully they can get those other lanes repaved at some point. But I will keep continuing to watch Iowa because I do love watching Indy cars go 150 miles an hour in those corners.
I mean, like, how many years have they been racing here now? And this is the first dud.
Yes, I was gonna say like Iowa is just so good overall with an Indy car. I like IndyCar doesn't go to Richmond anymore, and Richmond night racing is one of my favorite things ever. But you know, why did they stop going to Richmond? By the way,
Probably because NASCAR kicked them out.
more than likely, yeah. Because I was about to say like, if I'm not going to Richmond, like I think it is just so cool to have an almost mile-long flattish track to go to instead in corn country that still has nighttime racing. Um,
Yeah,
but
so
no, I
they've
mean,
this is the fourth
I
running of this doubleheader, and
yeah,
all
and
of
it's
them
always
have been
usually
good.
good. Yeah. But no, I believe next year will definitely be better with some developments of the hybrid system with may a hardy repave. Hopefully, even if we get a little more development, maybe if we get a better tire, it'll be a little better.
Part of what also happened was the Indy Next race got rained out, and Firestone uses that to get their tire data if
I
they don't
see.
have testing there.
Be unfortunate.
Yep.
Yeah. So, um, but overall, solid race. Races, I guess. I have one more thing to say myself. We've really dragged out Iowa. I didn't think we'd drag it out this long, but good racing, great, good talk. Because I want Iowa to be 500 laps. I want there to be one Iowa race, and I want it to be 500 laps. So bad. Actually, you know what? 400. Because I'll tell you what. Uh, Laps around Iowa take between 19 to 20 seconds on average, and that's kind of how long it takes to take a lap around Martinsville in NASCAR. Martinsville used to always be 500 laps. This year it was shortened to 400. But I know IndyCar always goes for a time quota. They try to get under 2 hours a race. I would love it so much though if there was their version of like a Richmond race where it was a really hyped up, like it was going to be the night race, like a 400 lap night race. I know logistically maybe the drivers could they take that? I don't know. I just know if it's night, it's gonna be cooler. So I bet the drivers could probably take that kind of punishment, an
Here's the
extra
thing.
150 laps.
Iowa is a really high G track, though.
It is.
Remember,
It's just
the, someone had a wheel fail. When was the last time we saw that? It was
yeah.
actually
It's
pointed
just
out in the
I
commentary that
love.
it's so intense that several of the teams, without even checking or testing them, were just replacing the right side suspension, both front and rear, for the second race.
Yeah, like I love Iowa so much, and watching Indy cars fly around Iowa is just as entertaining to me as watching NASCARs fly around. A speedway like Charlotte. It's just these cars are zipping around this track at unbelievable speeds. But yeah, like I would love to see more laps there, and I get it. Yeah, it's high G. It's hard in the driver's equipment. It would just be so cool in some fancy land to just get a 400 lapper there. And NASCAR went to Iowa
I think
just a few weeks ago. I'm trying to remember how many. Now this is not a comparison. I'm wondering how many laps were in the Iowa race really quickly because 350 laps for NASCAR.
to say I think they could do a 300 lap race with it being a proper night race instead of like, oh, it ends at sunset and we market it as our night race.
Yeah, like if we could actually have a night race, like when I think of night race, I think of the Bass Pro Shops NRA night race. I think of the Toyota Owners 400. I think of night races where it is properly advertised as such. Like NASCAR will go out of their way to say, "Hey, like this is the coolest night of the year. You got to come join us."
Like, if
IndyCar has any. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, for me, for this to be a night race, it needs to be starting when it ended this year.
Yes, yes, I 100% agree. And honestly, guys, like we'll talk about it later in depth, but I love night racing. Like night racing is my favorite time to watch racing. If I had one choice, I feel and it's not completely night though. Like I want there to be a brief sunset stint. I'm with Eli. Like I want it to start like let's say the race starts when it gets dark at 9. I want the race to start at 8 and I want to end between 10 and 11. That's my ideal race.
Yeah. Like, I want, like, the first half hour of the race to be drink sunset, and then the rest of the race to be just dark.
You know what, Eli? Maybe that's why I love the Coca-Cola 600 so darn much. Is because every year the Coca-Cola 600 starts quote unquote 6. The racing actually starts like 6:20, 6:30 and goes on until 10 or 10:30. It is like the most proper day to sunset to night race ever, and I love it.
Outside of
It's
a
just I
24
don't
hour
know. There's
race.
just like 24 is fine, but that's a little extreme. I'm talking about a race you can watch in a day
I know,
reasonably.
I'm just saying, like you said, it's the most proper day to sunset tonight, and I'm like, well,
I get you. But I don't know. There's just something so fun about like the race starts and like you start to put your like life away for an evening. Like it's all nice and relaxed. And by the time dusk comes, like it feels so cozy. Like you're in your blanket. You're only halfway through the race, watching these cars go around. If you're like me, you got your toys out with you, just enjoying watching these cars go around. I want to feel those same feelings for IndyCar, but the race is usually not completely at night, and it's very short and I just can't get into that warm zone.
yeah.
I like
Which
to
is,
get in the zone when I'm watching a night race. I like to be in a zone enough where I know I can go upstairs and go like switch out diecast and come back down, not miss anything.
yeah, it was, like, just push it back a little bit, make the one race a little bit longer. Honestly, I would even, running both races in the same day would be too much.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. Like a single 300 lap event at night, that would be delicious
Like,
because that would definitely hit the.
it'd be cool if they could manage to run it, like, one in the morning, one in the evening, but that would be too much.
Yeah, I would very much like. I want it to be a Saturday night race. I want it to be I want it to start around 8 or 9, like 8:30, because it's only going to be a little over 2 hours if it's during laps. Like let's start 8:30. We'll get and the stadium will be cleared by midnight. Like the race ends at 10:30. Everyone's out by midnight.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, in summary, hopefully next year it's better. I don't see how it won't be, because if nothing else, the new pavement will have gotten worn in a little bit, and it should be more equal.
Yeah, I do look forward to it. But I since I'm covering this, we've been on this for almost an hour, and honestly, I don't have much more to say. I feel like I said more than I wanted to say, honestly.
I was gonna say, do we want to go ahead and move on to our summary of Sao Paulo? Won't be here for long.
Yeah, and yeah, I doubt if we can stretch this to 9.5 minutes.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, the longest race of the weekend is the one we're going to spend the least time with. Basically, Toyota won, and they won about as hard as you could win. They won by over a minute and 8 seconds, I believe. And if it weren't for a technical failure, they would have had won too. And that's it.
Or Nick degrees.
I, genuinely, like, not every single time it looked like we might get a fight, there was either the two cars that were fighting were coming up on a lapped car, or a car was coming up to lap the cars that were fighting. Either both times it ruins the fight. Plus, the entire race was held like midday, so you didn't get any temperature changes affecting the track, and it didn't rain.
Garbage.
Yeah, out being a fairly bland race.
Yeah, and me and Eli were really talking about this before the podcast, like we mentioned, but actually, I already mentioned the track itself, but it's just I was expecting a much better race because this is the first year I've truly followed each race of the WEC because I never knew I could watch on HBO. Hey, Eli, did you know the WEC is on HBO Max or just Max?
Yeah, that still annoys me that I only just now learned that.
Same. But yeah, so I was expecting like all these races to be as good as 24-hour Le Mans, but it turns out when there's no day to night cycle, that is not as exciting. When there's no inclement weather, that's not very exciting because when you squeeze 60 cars onto a tight, narrow course, not a lot of passing or racing can really get done.
Well, it doesn't help that it's also a fairly short course. This might actually be one of the shortest tracks they run at.
Oh, that's kind of what I meant when I was talking about short and narrow, like the short part at least.
Yeah.
It unfortunately, yeah, suffers from that, and I wish it didn't.
Yeah, hold on. I want to look this up now.
Yeah, I'll fill a space really quick. I just want to shout out Valentino Rossi finished fifth. He actually got to finish this race. That was my highlight, was that BMW M Sport getting into the fifth position in GT3. That was awesome. And I would like to see more of that, even though he was beat out by two McLarens, the leading winning Porsche, and whoever was in the second place spot. I forget. Oh, by the way, the Iron Dames peed themselves. The car.
Yeah, that was I came back to check my computer, check the race as they're pulling into the pits and like they stop and just water starts pouring out from underneath.
Yeah, that was. At least we had comic relief.
Yeah, well the funny thing is, at that moment it was the exact moment that Levi texted me asking if I had been watching the race. So I assumed that something interesting was happening that prompted him to ask that. And then I see a car peeing itself. Alright.
um, and I just don't know how to fill space here. Like, genuinely, it was just fine. Whatever. Onto the spa. I believe it's spa's next.
No, Spa already happened.
Rats.
Next is Coda.
You know, that's a large track that's really wide. That should be pretty good.
Wide, plenty of runoff. Yep. Should be an actually good race. if you'll excuse me, the best way I found to be able to do this required me to pull up the Wikipedia page for every racetrack, because it is not consistently listed on WEC's website.
Huh.
Dang it, America being different. I about wrote down the wrong number. I was about to write down 5.5, and I'm like, that seems longer than Coda is. Like, Coda's big, but not that big. It's because it's an American track.
I think
The
Coda's
miles and
just,
kilometers are switched.
yeah, I was about to say, I thought it was just under 3 miles, or just over. Between 2 and 3.
Yeah. Since it's an American track, it's miles first, kilometers second. All of the other tracks are kilometers first, miles second.
Uh,
5, and on to the final one, Bahrain. 3.3.
now Bahrain is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, unsurprisingly, the longest track is naturally Le Mans. It is then followed up by Spa at 4.35 miles long, which is then followed up by Coda at 3.42 miles, then Bahrain at 3.36, which is tied with Qatar also at 3.36. Then we have Imola at 3.05, Fuji at 2.83, and then Sao Paulo at 2.68. So yeah, Sao Paulo is the shortest, and it is by quite a bit.
Dang.
But yeah, that wraps up literally everything we have to say about Sao Paulo, about the 6 hours of Sao Paulo.
Yeah, I wish, and for those WEC listeners out there, I'm so sorry we couldn't be more excited about this. We're just following the vibe, and the vibe didn't lead us to Sao Paulo this weekend. We weren't turned on by it.
Sometimes WEC is the best racing you'll ever see. Other times Toyota wins by over a minute. And a pink Lamborghini pees itself.
I like how WEC introduced the new hypercar regulations to stop Toyota from being the only manufacturer on the grid, and somehow they maintain to be the only manufacturer on the grid.
Just like, hey, look. They just know what they're doing, right? Oh. Anyway, we also don't really have any news to talk about because it's been 2 days since we recorded an episode last, and I banned the one news topic that's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, Eli banned me before the episode to talk about anything, so
But
I'm not allowed to talk.
So that basically just leaves us with talking about what we might cover next week. There's actually a lot of racing.
Also, because it's only been 3 days since we recorded, I totally did not get a listener for the Eli 5 segment.
Also,
I don't know if you want to spawn another.
Literally everyone we know that would do it either works late nights on Mondays or early mornings on Tuesdays. I'm pretty sure they would all shoot us for even suggesting that they join.
I mean, Luke almost shot me. I had to talk him out of it for him to get on. I had to blackmail him. But
You want me to
yeah,
grab an AI question?
I was gonna say I'm trying to think of news before we get off because yeah, it only has been 3 days since we even talked, and over the weekend, I mean, uh, yeah. Wait, let's go and do Eli 5. Let's ask the robot a question just so we can be sad, and we'll see where we go from there.
Now this
Oh,
time.
I gotta explain Eli 5. This is my turn to explain. Guys, welcome to the Eli 5 segment. If you tuned in this long, you probably have some sort of mental illness. So before we begin, go ahead and get a referral to a therapist. That's probably your best move next. Second, if you're still here, here's how Eli 5 works. It's called Explain Like I'm 5. So Eli has 5 minutes to explain a motorsports question, and he has to explain it like he's 5, explain like you, the asker, are 5. And if he doesn't do it in 5 minutes, he gets kicked off the show. Simple as that. I have to do it myself.
Except
Unfortunate.
we don't have someone this week.
Okay.
So I have summoned a robot.
So
and it's going to be asking Levi a question about NASCAR.
Yeah, so what happens, guys, when Eli doesn't have someone to mansplain to, we basically, this is the Levi mansplains to a robot segment. So I have 5 minutes to mansplain this question to this robot, whatever he may ask me. So go ahead, let's go ahead and spawn this question. Let's hope the robot has a good one for us here. Awaiting the robot question as he thinks.
Ooh,
Just
okay.
a quick.
It got an interesting one.
Oh.
What are the primary and key differences between NASCAR's Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series? What are their purposes and...
Oh my... You
5
could have
minutes
just
starts
said
now.
to go get... Oh, you could have just told me to go get some dessert, because this is going to be so sweet. So the question was, they're just key differences between the three?
Yep. What key differences and what's the point of them?
I'm so hot. So we'll start with the bot. Should we start with the bottom? You know what? It's on my time. This is my time. I'll decide how I start. I'm going to take a second. So everybody wants to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver. We'll start with the echelon, the upper echelon. NASCAR is what you know NASCAR to be. It's what you see every Sunday. There's more NASCAR, you say to yourself. There's different NASCARs. There is. The guys in the top series need to start somewhere. So there's 3 NASCAR National Series. NASCAR Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, which is the grade below NASCAR's Cup Series, and they also use stock cars. And then there's the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, which uses racing trucks, same weight and everything as a Cup car, but it's just aerodynamically different, of course. So the differences between the series, now I'll go truck to up, is Truck Series drivers are, these are the very beginnings of NASCAR's talent. These guys are scraped up around the world. They are usually from recommendations, team offers from guys who have been really good in lower series, NASCAR owned series like the ARCA Menard series, either East or West, or if they've just been really renowned at the late model short track racing. They also derive a lot of their talent from the local dirt track. So if there's national or local dirt track racing, maybe World of Outlaws, NASCAR harvests talent from all of those different series in America's stock car sanctioned races to come into the truck series if they think that talent can be bred into an eventual Cup Series winner. So those really talented drivers across the U.S. start in the truck series. And then if they really thrive in that, they get put into NASCAR's second series, the Xfinity series. Both these series use the same exact Goodyear tire. They use the same exact weight of the vehicle, of course, and the difference between Xfinity and trucks is the length of schedule. Xfinity runs 33 races a year. truck runs 23. So your standout truck series drivers get up to Xfinity. Xfinity runs those extra races and everything, but it goes from truck to car. These cars are Generation 5 stock cars, the car of tomorrow. These are sheet metal. These are fiberglass mixed. And carbon fiber hoods. These are mixed composite body cars. Lots of crumple zones. Kind of weak compared to Cup cars. And I think they have about a little less power. So the 3 Series do have power differentials. And I believe Xfinity is about 100 horsepower less than Cup, and truck is 100 less under that. So Xfinity, that's the car. And of course, last but not least, Cup Series, if you're an Xfinity driver who stands out, wins a lot, gets maybe a championship, you don't have to get a championship, maybe you just stand out, you'll get an offer from the Premier Series of NASCAR, the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, to race their Cup cars. This current generation is very different from any Xfinity or truck car. These Generation 7 NASCARs are 5-speed sequential shifters as opposed to 4-speed manual transmissions, 670 horsepower V8 engines, single lug nut wheels instead of 5 lug nut wheels, and I forget how. I think the rims are 18 inches as opposed to 15, or is it 18 to 14? I just know that wheels are definitely bigger in the Cup Series and the tire is thinner. Did I miss anything? The last but not least, your Cup Series champions are the guys you buy diecast from, and that's how you get from a local short track racer to a Cup Series star over the 3 big national series owned by NASCAR. I am done, and that was 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Was the AI satisfied? I think, guys, I just murdered Eli. Like, I think Eli's brain melted out of his nose, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, my NASCAR knowledge was like opening the Ark, and his brain's just melted out from his nose. So I'll take over hosting duties.
No, the AI doesn't
great to have you.
understand shorthand, so I had to type it and summarize.
Wow. So apparently the AI, the brain's melted out of its electronic nose.
You talk at a mile a minute when you're talking about NASCAR.
Because it gets the juices going.
Yes, but my typing speed is decent, but not that fast. However, you were adequate for the AI.
You heard that, guys. I'm adequate. I don't care what they say.
The robot overlords thinks he's okay.
The robot overlords gives me a 5.1 out of 10.
It says, it sounds like you have a solid grasp of the differences between the series, to be exact.
A solid grasp? Oh my gosh, that's offensive. Yeah, man, that was totally a decent grasp. You could totally improve in so many areas, but you know what? That's sufficient for me. I'll go about my day. Thanks, man.
I knew you'd get a kick out of that. Anyway, now
that was your Eli 5 segment. Now that there are absolutely 0 listeners.
So next week.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I like Eminem. Like, I just did an Eminem rap through that answer. What does Mom Spaghetti have to do with V8s?
There is a way that you can use voice input for it. And if this is going to become a reoccurring thing, I'm going to just need to figure out how to do that. But we should talk about what races we might want to talk about next week. The way I see it, there are 5. 4 series, 5 races. Wait, am I
Okay,
thinking right?
well, I will like to continue my fandom because I am going to the Brickyard 400 next week in person, so it'd kind of be weird if we just kind of skipped over my experience.
Yeah, that's obviously one of them, and that was the one that is definitely a lock. There are
If you force me to be quiet about that, I might actually quit the show.
5 races, 3 series. That's what I was saying. The finale of Formula E is next week as well.
Oh, so that's 2 races.
That's a doubleheader, but they're both
Okay,
like an hour. The
so
2 races
no
average out to the
MotoGP.
length of a normal one.
Okay, so no MotoGP until next month. We're done with
No,
that. I'm guessing no IndyCar next week.
no, there is the Superbike World Championship.
Oh, baby. Guys, you know how much I love MotoGP. I don't think you guys are ready for the tongue bathing I'm going to give Superbike.
And then there is also, of
Oh.
course, F1 at Hungary.
We'll probably have to talk about F1 at Hungary. I'm sure it's going to be a good race.
I mean, we're probably going to
You
talk
know
about
what?
it if nothing else because Checo's probably going to get fired.
But I was going to say, listeners may not know this, but after next week, it's kind of going to get like really thin on racing overall.
Yeah.
I feel like we can totally get weird with it because I need to talk about World Superbike or I might actually explode
I mean, the
at
week
some point.
after, literally the only races that happen is uh, Spa, F1 at Spa, and like drag racing.
Oh my gosh, no, wait. Oh, the UK round was already over. But what? Just, oh, take it. We're not going back to Superbike until August. Oh boy. What I'm trying to say between all these moans is that I really want to talk about Superbike along with Spa. Like, I want to discuss the Czech Republic round a week later because I need to talk about Superbike.
I'm gonna say, I for some reason don't think that we'll be able to draw an additional half hour to 45 minutes off of the drag racing.
Yeah, I guys, I like NHRA. Um, but honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be inevitable that I'll get super hardcore into it, like collecting the toys one day or something. But I don't know. I have definitely like it, and when it's on, I get excited. I remember how excited I was when I was like 14 watching it for the first time, but it's just not something I've ever gotten really knee deep into. I'm sure we're gonna cover it at some point, but I'd much rather cover Superbike this month.
Yeah. So after next week is when we start seeing some series wrap up, other series go on their break. So we'll start doing weirder things for a couple months.
Yeah, and if you think it's gonna get weird, just wait until winter comes, and we're gonna have to get creative.
That's when we go watch like the 2001 Daytona and stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna watch like I definitely have subjects I want to talk about, but I think we're totally gonna like watch classic races and do commentary.
Do some throwback racing. Maybe go back into just basically probably just end up talking about some of our favorite races.
Favorite races, favorite diecasts, favorite games, all that good stuff. Well, we'll even talk about our motorcycles one episode.
There's also a idea that we had thrown around with
Enlighten me.
of doing episodes about certain controversial incidents historically.
We would need more. We would need a two-parter for 2021.
kind of want to have Isaac rewatch it with us, just to see if he has any clue what any of it means.
Mm-hmm.
But that is all for later. So, most likely, well, definitely NASCAR, unless it ends up being so terrible that Levi, having been there, doesn't want to talk about it.
Mm.
See, if we had planned this farther ahead, you'd have been able to have a big sign with you that says Irreverent with our, like a QR code or something to our YouTube channel on it. But that would have required
You don't think
forethought.
I'll? No, I'm totally going to do that now that you said it.
Okay. I'll be able to look out for you on the broadcast. But, so...
Yeah, totally do it.
We looking for that? Probably. Mostly because there's a very good likelihood that Nick Cassidy wins Formula E this year. So we're going to talk about that. I'm not going to say probably, we're going to talk about that. And we're probably also going to talk about F1 at Hungary, because Hungary is usually a good race. But until then, I've been Eli. He's been a massive NASCAR fan. And leave us alone.